sure to be a wide range of opinions and views on how to prepare the best barbecue. If you're interested in participating in a future roundtable show, visit our homepage at www.bbq-4-u.com and click on the email button to submit your request. And now, here's the host of the outrageously successful Barbecue Central podcast show, who will now be acting as the moderator of the Barbecue Roundtable, Greg Rempe.
Thank you, Jim Morgan, and welcome to the Barbecue Roundtable, a monthly show where a select panel of guests talk about a specific barbecue topic. Tonight, we are talking about what some would consider to be the holy grail of barbecue, that being pork ribs. Everybody loves to master a great rib. Tonight, again, focusing on the backyard for the backyard chef. We have three great panelists lined up to take part in this. They are all experienced barbecue chefs in their own right, and in no particular order. We have on the line tonight Curt McAdams from Waynesville, Ohio, Steve Johnson from Greenville, North Carolina, and Russ Cornett from Somerville, South Carolina. Gentlemen, welcome to the Barbecue Central Show. How are you tonight?
Excellent. Greg, how are you?
Thanks.
Great. I always love every time I ask that question, I'm like, well, all three of them are just going to jump right in. So I gotta tighten that up for the next show. Anyway, guys, certainly appreciate you making time to come on and do the Barbecue Roundtable. We're going to be talking about pork ribs tonight. This is a live version, so we'll see how time flies. But before we actually get into the whole preparation and the cooking and the post-production elements, why don't we go ahead and see what everybody's cooking on. We'll start with Curt, we'll go to Steve, and then we'll end with Russ. Go ahead, Curt.
Well, I cook on a couple different things. I'm using a Bubba Keg cooker right now, as well as an extra large big green egg. And for competition, we use a homemade box smoker that holds about 400 pounds of meat if we wanted to.
Steve?
I cook on a couple also. I cook, my main pit is a backwood smoker, the professional model. I also have a smaller model that I play around with, and then I have a whole pig cooker.
Russ?
I've got a couple Lever Smoky Mountains I use backyard, and I've got a homemade propane tank converted to a pit. I use competition.
All right, so a bunch of different styles of cookers, and that always makes for a great backyard roundtable discussion. So we're talking, again, about ribs tonight, pork ribs, and we'll see if, as time allows, if we can get in anything a little bit more exotic. But let's obviously start from the beginning, preparation. Is your preference baby backs or spares? If spares, do you do whole spares or do you do St. Louis-style ribs? And you know what? Actually, let me ask a question before that. When you're looking at ribs, regardless of the actual cut, what are you looking for? And we'll start with Russ.
Greg, usually when I buy ribs, I buy them in 3-down packs. I get them from Sam's. So I'll look at the back side and make sure there's no shiners or bones showing, and make sure we got just a pretty looking rib, even distribution, meat, fat across the slab, and just look what you can look for. Of course, you're going to miss the middle rib, and you get what you get there, I guess. But as you give us spares too.
Curt? Curt?
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear you there.
Sorry.
I look for shiners too, which, as was said, that's when the bones show through the front of the ribs, not the back. And I, even for backyard, I kind of look for presentation a little bit, where I like the bones to be as straight up and down instead of at an angle as they can be. And I generally go with spare ribs myself, although I won't turn down a baby back rib.
And we'll end with Steve.
I also look for shiners. I look for more of a symmetrical type shape of my ribs. I want them to be, when they come down, I go with a spare rib as well, and I cut them down to the St. Louis cuts. And so I want to make sure that I don't have as much waste. I look to make sure that I've got some decent flap meat there, and that there's not a lot of fat hanging around the bones and everything.
So it's safe to say that the majority or the consensus here tonight is more of a St. Louis or a spare rib versus a baby back.
Yeah, I cut mine down to St. Louis also.
Okay. Now, when you flip it over, and we were talking about shiners on top, which means bone is showing through the skin, but when you flip it over, does anybody take the membrane off, or perhaps a better question would be, does anybody not take the membrane off? And we'll start with Steve.
Yeah, I definitely take mine off.
And Curt?
I hate the membrane being on. That's something I religiously do, is remove it.
Russ?
Always take the membrane off.
Now, has anybody actually ever consumed a rib that's had the membrane on? I never have, at least as far as I know. Ever since I got into barbecue, that's the first thing I learned was to take them off. Has anybody had a rib with a membrane on it? Can you talk about what it actually tastes like, or what the texture difference is with or without?
I have.
Well,
Go ahead.
I have as well, and it's not as much the flavor as it is the texture and how chewy it is. It's not as desirable. You're pulling and tugging on the rib, so it's important that you remove that membrane. There's two membranes there, and you want to get the first one off, and of course the second one you want to leave alone because that's what keeps the bones held together.
Your similar experience with yours, Curt?
Well, for me, I always think of it as like really thick paper. It kind of has that texture to me, kind of gets in between your teeth, and it's just not, it makes the eating of the rib just not as nice.
Russ, any experience with that, or are you always a membrane offer?
Always membrane off. I mean, I've eaten the membrane. It's like the guy said, it's not a good experience to eat a membrane.
All right, so, preparation, there's probably not too many things you can do, but I decided to ask a few new wave questions. Does anybody do any type of, wet marinade with the rib, or perhaps even, dare I say, inject the ribs? And we'll start with Russ.
No, Greg, all I do, I use my dry rub. I don't wet marinade, I don't inject, I don't brine. I just prep them and put a dry rub on them and get them ready for the pit.
How about you, Steve?
I'm pretty much like Russ. I don't use a wet marinade. I don't brine them. I certainly don't inject them. I use my dry rub, and if I have time, I'll wrap them in some film for about an hour before I put it on the pit, just to let it get a little bit into the meat. But primarily, it's the dry rub.
Curt?
Well, I don't brine. Brining can actually make them taste very hammy. You have to be really careful because there's not that much thickness to it, so the brine can work all the way through pretty quickly. I generally dry rub because, unfortunately, with competition, I kind of practice quite a bit at home, although it's really good still. But I do like to do one thing. I've tried Texas pepper jelly, which is pretty good on it. And my wife makes a killer apple butter that I like to slather on them before putting a rub on sometimes, and it just gives it a really nice flavor.
All right, so we've kind of eliminated some of the more exotic techniques. I don't even know if anybody's actually doing those or not, or if they would admit it in public. So everybody's using a dry rub at some point. Steve, we'll start with you. Go ahead and give us the whole rub process. How much time beforehand do you rub them down, and then we'll go through the panel there.
Well, if I have time, like I said, I usually let them. I put a rub on about an hour before I'm actually going to load them, and just let the rub kind of set in a little bit, and it gets moist, and it helps. It helps with the flavor of the rib. That's about all I do. I mean, I obviously I prep the ribs. But when you're talking about the rub, I don't prep it much longer than about an hour before I load them.
Russ?
Same, Greg. I'll go 2 hours. I don't like to go too far in advance. The rub I use, it's got some salt in it, and if you put the rub on too far in advance, you'll get that hammy flavor. they're talking about it just now.
And Curt?
So about an hour or two before.
Okay.
For me, I used to put a lot of rub on it to try to get a crust, and I'd put it on 2 or 3 hours ahead of time. And I've kind of gone more towards less rub, where I do it right before I put them on, really let the meat stand on its own and use the rub just as a layer of flavor on top of it. So for me, it's out of the fridge, trim them, rub them, and put them on the smoker.
Now, I'm going to ask this question, and typically I rarely get anybody that goes against this, but the time I don't answer it or ask it is the day I get a lot of email about it. Does anybody take their ribs out well in advance before putting them on the cooker to make them reach a certain ambient temperature? Do you like to let them warm up a little bit, or do you go? Are you more of a straight from the fridge to the cooker kind of deal? And we'll start with Curt.
Well, like I said, I go straight from the fridge, and there's other reasons for that too. The longer you keep below, 140 degrees is probably the consensus, the more smoke ring you get, so you get more of that pink. And with ribs, I kind of like it all the way through, so I like to put them on right from the fridge.
Russ?
Yeah, I used to let mine set out gray, but I don't really see a difference. And, so I just put them either from the cooler if I'm at a competition or from the fridge, right to the pit.
Now, did you notice when you started putting them from the fridge into the pit that you did get a better smoke ring, as Curt had mentioned, or did you not notice that going from a warmer to a cooler rib?
Not really, no. I mean, I either didn't notice or wasn't very observant, but we've always done pretty well in the rib category, so we keep doing what works. So, no, I didn't really notice any difference.
Steve?
I'm basically the same as both Russ and Curt. I take mine straight from the fridge and put it right onto the pit. And that's primarily for the same reason as Curt. There's pretty much there's a lot of studies and everything that can back up that you get a nicer smoke ring coming out of the fridge and onto the pit. So that's just how we've done it.
All right, now, that's pretty much the full coverage for preparation, but are there any other steps that I haven't addressed or haven't asked questions about? And we'll go ahead and start with Steve on this one.
Well, I think, as I recall, all three of us, we start off with a spare rib, and we cut them down. I prefer a spare rib. I prefer to cut them down and prep them myself, so that I have a little bit more control of how that rib is going to look when it's finished, where I'm going to end it, where I'm going to begin it, as far as flat meat, because I like to use all of it. I like to use cut off that chine bone and use the rib tip portion of it. I like the flat meat for sandwiches, and then of course the spare rib, the St. Louis cut rib itself. So I like to prep it, and especially back in the day when I competed. I'm going to start competing again next year, but back in the day when I competed, I don't like anybody to touch my ribs. I like to prep them myself.
Curt?
We've talked about St. Louis cut, and I don't know if your listeners are probably pretty varied. Some already know how to cut down to a St. Louis cut, but it's basically taking the cartilage and the brisket part of the rib down to the bone and just leaving the bone. And what you end up with is a really nice, hopefully rectangular slab of ribs that's nothing but bone and meat. And that's mostly what I do. I cut the breastbone off the back, take the membrane off like we talked about, and that's pretty much it for prep.
Russ?
Basically the same thing, Greg. Like I said, peel the membrane, cut the little flap off the back, trim down the cartilage to where the bones are an even rectangular shape. One more thing I also do, turn the ribs over the meat side. On the big side, the big bone side, there's usually a layer of fat, a small layer of meat, and a layer of fat. I try to trim as much of that fat off as I can, those larger bones. Usually the first 2 or 3 bones has that little fat layer at the large end. That helps with the consistency of thickness of the rib, the slab itself.
All right. Well, we are right on time so far. That's going to wrap up the preparation portion of the ribs. Guys, hang with me through the break here. We'll get into the actual cooking portion here. Before we go, Central Lights, I want to remind you, a quick reminder about Joe Bees. I've been talking about them for months. I've been taking them myself now for months. It's all natural bee pollen, and it is great stuff. I highly suggest you check it out. You can go to Joe Bees, that's B-E-E-S, joebees.com, or you can call them at 877-300-5632. If you buy 6 months right now, you'll get your 7-month free and free shipping. Ask for Joe B. He'll help you out. Get that great feeling of energy and all that other good stuff without the taurine, caffeine, jittery Red Bull type deal. It's joebees.com, 877-300-5632. We'll be right back with the cooking portion of the show. Stand by. You're listening to the Barbecue Roundtable on the Barbecue Central Radio Networks.
Forget going from site to site to get all your barbecue and grilling supplies and make your first and final stop at fredsmusicandbarbecue.com. In the market for a new barbecue pit, we have all the big name brands like Big Green Egg and more. As a matter of fact, Fred's is staffed by eggheads and carries all the parts and accessories for the Big Green Egg. More of a pellet head, you say? Fred's is the pellet grill superstore with grills in stock from Traeger, Green Mountain, and Country Smokers from Louisiana Grills. Fred also carries smokers from Cook Shack, Bradley, and Weber as well a full lineup of charcoal grills. And once you're outfitted with your new smoker or grill, you'll find absolutely everything you need to make your barbecue or grilling experience a success. Fred is also the creator and distributor of Tasty Licks barbecue products, including their great line of rubs, spices, and sauces. You gotta try them. You can also get your hands on a full lineup of marinades, accessories, lumped charcoal, wood chips, pellets, chunks, and even the great grilling tools from Stephen Reichland of Barbecue U fame. Check Fred out on the web at fredsmusicandbbq.com or check out their fully stocked showroom in beautiful Shillington, PA.
Barbecue has never been easier with the Barbecue Guru. The Barbecue Guru is a temperature control and monitor for all pits, charcoal, wood, electric, your pit. It easily attaches to any smoker or pit and gives you simple, trouble-free control of your temperatures so you can make championship quality barbecue every time and all the time. And it's location-free. Take it anywhere. This amazing breakthrough in barbecue technology is a microprocessor-controlled draft system that uses temperature monitors and a small fan to keep your temperatures constant. The stainless steel Guru Pit Minder gives you a choice of controls from 90 to 370 degrees. So cold smoking, pepper drying, making cheese or jerky, or fabulous briskets and ribs is nothing short of effortless. The Procom 4 lets you monitor your pit from up to 600 feet away. And there's more. Check out the full line of products and accessories for the future of barbecue with new items on the way. Visit thebarbecueguru.com. That's www.thebbqguru.com or call 1-800-288-GURU.
Now, let's get back to the Barbecue Central Show on LA Talk Radio.
Welcome back to the Barbecue Roundtable. This is the Barbecue Central Show on the Barbecue Central Radio Networks. This portion brought to you by the folks at the Barbecue Guru. You know, if you're looking into getting an automatic pit temperature control device, why would you go anywhere else? These guys started it all. You can look them up on the web, thebbqguru.com. You can also call them at 877-288-GURU. Thebbqguru.com, 877-800-288-GURU. Sorry about that. Getting my numbers confused. Let's get back to the Barbecue Roundtable right now. We'll go ahead and pick up at the cooking section of the show. Gentlemen, thanks for hanging with me through the break. We've prepped our ribs. We're going to now get our cookers ready. So, first question right off the bat. Do any or all of you bring your cookers up to temperature first before you actually add the meat? And we'll start with Russ.
Most of the time. It depends on what's going on. But yeah, most of the time I will. If it's closed, I'll throw them on there and let it go, let it roll.
Steve?
It depends on what I'm doing with it. If I'm getting it ready for catering or if I'm competing or something, I'll bring it all the way up to temperature. If I'm doing it for personal, I actually like loading it cold so that it takes on more smoke
I generally bring it up to temperature just to make sure that I've got real steady temps and I'm not, still going to spike up any. I like to get it about 225 and just let it sit there.
What do you guys use for wood smoke flavor, Russ?
Greg, I've gone to pecan chunks, or chunks or sticks, depending on what cooker I'm using. But basically, pecan. That's I've been using that for the past 3 years or so, and it's done pretty well for me.
Steve?
I use oak, hickory, and pecan.
Oak, hickory, and pecan. And Curt?
Best barbecue restaurant I've ever been to is a little shack down in South Carolina, and befriended the chef, and he's actually a real chef. And he loads me up on pecan whenever I can get it. And if I could use only one wood, it would be pecan.
All right, pecan. I don't get pecan. Not that I don't get it, I just don't actually get it physically.
You should get it.
I evidently
Come get it.
It's +3 here, so that sounds good to me. All right, if you're using charcoal for your particular cookers, are you a lump or a briquette person, and why either one? And we'll start with Curt.
I use in the Bubba Keg and the Big Green Egg, I use charcoal as my heat source, and I only use lump. The reason is it has much less ash, which can really clog up either one of those types of cookers. And when I want to grill, it burns much hotter than briquettes do. I did pizzas the other night at like 725 degrees using lump charcoal. And I just don't like dealing with all the ash from the briquettes.
Steve?
I use lump, pretty much for the same reasons that Curt does. The ash residue, it burns cleaner, it burns hotter. I think it has a better flavor, and I'm not a charcoal person or a briquette person. I definitely prefer to go with lump.
Russ?
Greg, I use briquette especially. I've used lump, and I like what these guys are saying. It tastes better and burns cleaner and hotter. But I think I like the consistency I get out of using a briquette versus a lump, just for the ease and maintenance of keeping the pit this constant temp.
All right, so
I think it makes a big difference when you're using briquettes. If you have a non-airtight cooker, you're going to be much more consistent with the briquettes.
Right.
Sorry to interrupt.
No problem. What temperature do you like your pit to be cooking at while you're smoking up the ribs? And we'll start with Steve.
I like to hold them at 225.
Russ?
I go between 235, 240, somewhere in that range.
And Curt?
I generally go 225 unless I'm in a hurry. And one of the nice things about pork in general is I can bump them up closer to 300 and still get a pretty good product. So sometimes I'll do that if I need to.
We've all done that. Pork is pretty forgiving.
All right, so now we're going to get to the dirty question of the night here. During the cooking process, does anybody foil during the cook? If you foil, are you doing it by time? Are you doing it by color? Are you doing it by both? And we'll start with Curt.
It depends if I use foil or not. I like both ways. When I'm practicing for competition, which I tend to just do automatically, it seems sometimes, I will foil, and I foil for two reasons. One is I foil for color, so I do go by color, not by time. The other reason is that I use it as a chance to layer some more flavor on it, where I'll add a little bit of sweet, either in the form of something like an apple juice or pineapple juice, peach preserves, that sort of thing, and wrap it all up and let it kind of braise in that for a little while.
Steve?
I've never actually used foil.
Ever?
I've been one of those kind of diehard people where I've just I've just done it really low and slow, and it's worked well for me. But having said that, I've read a lot on foil recently, and it's certainly something that I'll probably be experimenting with before next competition season.
And Russ.
I do use foil. I like foil. And I wrap, I guess, depending what cooker I'm using, the WSM, I'll look for color because they'll tend to get a lot of smoke. But a large pit, I'll usually wrap right at 2.5, 3 hours, depending on where the ribs look and how they're starting to draw. But yes, I do use foil all the time.
I use foil all the time. I've never made a good rib when I haven't used foil, so that's my 2 cents for the night. Now I'll shut up. Does anybody mop, assuming, I guess, you're not foiling, or perhaps before you foil, do you mop or baste or spray the ribs? And we'll start with Russ.
Greg, I don't do any of that. Once I rub it, I'll sit on the pit and I'll let it cook. I used to spray with an apple juice, and I stopped doing that one time to experiment it and didn't really see much of a difference, so I stopped doing it, so I don't do anything.
Curt?
When I started off, I thought, mopping was the thing to do, or spraying or whatever, and I realized all it did really was extend my cook times. I quit putting extra stuff on anything while it's cooking, and really found no real difference.
Steve?
Hello?
Hello.
Okay. Yeah, I'm. I don't.
Go ahead, Steve.
Are we there?
I believe so. Curt, you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
I think he just muted himself out. Go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, sorry, my dog was causing some problems.
Oh, that's all right. I just thought the call was dropped. I used to spray a long time ago, and for the same reasons that Curt had mentioned, I didn't really notice a difference other than my cooking times were being extended, and so now I load them. The least amount of time that you can open up your pit, the better off you are, and the better quality product you are. So, I've been in competitions and things like that where I've seen all kinds of people, and they'll open up the lid or they'll open up the door or whatever, every 10 minutes to spray it, and I'm just not really understanding why they're doing that. But I don't spray.
Any other cooking portions that we haven't covered? In cook tips and techniques. We'll start with Russ.
No, Greg. I mean, after it goes into the foil, for an hour and a half, 2 hours, it comes out for me, and I wrap it up last 10-15 minutes paint it with a sauce and let the sauce tighten up with a couple.
Don't jump ahead.
Okay. No, we've covered everything, Greg.
All right, Curt.
Well, with that, I'll leave it there too.
All right, and Steve, anything that we haven't talked about yet in the cooking process?
Well, I guess based on what just happened, I'm done. We're cooking.
Yeah, we don't want to jump ahead of our last segment. That would be terrible. All right, so then we'll go ahead and step away a little bit early, and that'll give us plenty of time here on the backside to do the post cook and get a winner for what we have coming up here later in the show. So, gentlemen, I will put you back on hold here for just a moment. Go ahead and email your questions if you want to. bbqcentralradio@gmail.com. At the end of the show, Russ Cornett, he also owns Smokin' Coals Barbecue Sauce and Rub Company. He's going to be giving away a 2-pack of Smokin' Coals Barbecue Sauce. No, panel members, you are not eligible. Contestants or panel members are not eligible to win, and neither am I. Giveaway at the end of the show coming up. You can look at them at smokincoals.com. If you're a Twitter person, you can follow you can follow Curt McAdams. He's C. McAdams. And you can also follow Steve on Twitter at BBQLikeAPro. You can follow Barbecue Central Show on Twitter as well, BBQ Central. Stick around. We have the post-cook events coming up here on the Barbecue Roundtable Ribs Edition for the backyard. Stand by. I'll be right back.
The future of Barbecue is already here at thebarbecueguru.com. From the amazing guru that monitors and controls the temperatures of any charcoal, wood, or electric pit to the Caldera Tallboy knockdown smoker. Yes, it breaks down and stores flat, yet it's still a robust, sturdy, portable cooker and smokehouse. It also serves as an efficient temperature-controlled convection oven using wood or charcoal. The Tallboy is designed to fit all catering pans and can be used as a warming oven. You can cook in any style you choose. Make ribs, chicken, jerky, vegetables, smoked cheese, whatever you want. Take it to KCBS competitions and unload it from the trunk of your car. TheBarbecueGuru.com is where you'll find the Caldera 3-Bay Caterer. It's stainless steel and uses charcoal or sterno for chafing purposes. And it doubles as a 3-bay sink or wash station with hot water and knocks down in seconds with no tools required for transportation and storage. The future of barbecue is here at thebarbecueguru.com. That's www.thebbqguru.com or call 1-800-288-GURU.
Forget going from site to site to get all your barbecue and grilling supplies and make your first and final stop at fredsmusicandbarbecue.com. In the market for a new barbecue pit, we have all the big name brands like Big Green Egg and more. As a matter of fact, Fred's is staffed by eggheads and carries all the parts and accessories for the Big Green Egg. More of a pellet head, you say? Fred's is the pellet grill superstore with grills in stock from Traeger, Green Mountain, and Country Smokers from Louisiana Grills. Fred also carries smokers from Cook Shack, Bradley, and Weber as well as a full lineup of charcoal grills. And once you're outfitted with your new smoker or grill, you'll find absolutely everything you need to make your barbecue or grilling experience a success. Fred is also the creator and distributor of Tasty Licks barbecue products, including their great line of rubs, spices, and sauces. You gotta try them. You can also get your hands on a full lineup of marinades, accessories, lump charcoal, wood chips, pellets, chunks, and even the great grilling tools from Stephen Reichland of Barbecue U fame. Check Fred out on the web at fredsmusicandbbq.com or check out their fully stocked showroom in beautiful Shillington, PA. Now, let's get back to the Barbecue Central Show on LA Talk Radio.
Welcome back, Barbecue Central Show. This is the Barbecue Roundtable edition of Pork Ribs. Brought to you, this segment, by D-Dog's Barbecue Rub. You know you love D-Dog's Barbecue Rubs and Sauces, but would you like to buy them locally? If you do, then D-Dogs needs your help. Send them your name, the address, and the phone number of the local barbecue store, farmer's market, grocery store. D-Dogs will do the rest. Email this info to Darren, D-A-R-I-N, that's Darren, at ddogsbbq.com. He'll take care of the rest. Also, don't forget to visit him in Texas at the 2009 Zest Fest in Fort Worth on September 11th through the 13th. Go on and say hello to Darren and sample some award-winning sauces and rubs. Also, make sure to take advantage of the show discounts. Follow them. ddogsbbq.com is the website. All right, let's go ahead and pick up with the post-cook events here. Gentlemen, thanks for hanging with me through another break. So now we've more or less have all of our ribs cooked the way we want them. So now prior to taking them off the grill, and we kind of touched on this just before we blasted out on the backside there on the other segment, does anybody set a glaze or put on some barbecue sauce for the last few minutes before you actually take them off the cooker? And we'll start with Russ.
Yeah, I do. I use my sauce. I paint it on there usually in about 15 minutes before and maybe 20 minutes before, and I'll usually do 2 layers of that and let it tighten up a little bit before I take them off the pit.
All right, Curt, I'm going to ask you, but first I need to ask you this question from Kim. Do you really use Perrier water for boiling your ribs prior to grilling them?
That's from someone that shouldn't have sent any email question. And no, I don't boil my ribs.
Thank goodness. All right, are you setting a glaze, Curt?
Well, now, in Ohio, there's some well-known rib places that are not very good ribs that have the fall-off-the-bone rib.
Yeah.
And so they kind of turned me off of sauce for a while, so I only did dry ribs. But anymore, I do a thin layer or 2 of sauce, and I make my own. I call it liquid live fire. And I just put that on 10, 15 minutes before they're ready to come off and let it kind of bake on a bit.
Steve?
Yeah, I do a thin, kind of a fruity sweet based on it, just to finish it off.
All right, now is it after you take the ribs off and you have everything set up the way you want sauce wise? Does anybody actually like wrap them to hold them? Like, for instance, a lot of people like to wrap their pork butts or their briskets in foil and put them in a cooler. Hold them. Anybody into the holding process with ribs? And we'll start with Curt.
Well, I think any meat you take off of a grill or smoker should rest a little bit. So I usually put it in foil, although you can use cellophane too, just for 10, 15 minutes before touching them.
Curt, or I'm sorry, Steve.
Yeah, I always, whether it's ribs or brisket or butts, it really doesn't matter. I always wrap them in film. It tends to help them not only just help rest, but it also it's self-based it to help keep it moist.
Russ?
For ribs, Greg, I really don't rest them. If they come off the pit, they're usually ready to go and to eat from catering or eating at home or on the competition. They get cut and get put in the box. And for larger cuts, I'll let them rest, like a brisket or a butt. But ribs, when they come off the pit, they're ready to go.
All right, so to Curt and Steve, this is kind of my own impromptu follow-up question to that. Have you had ribs that you've just had right off the pit versus the holding ones, and have you noticed then a considerable difference between the ones you're wrapping and eating and the ones that you haven't wrapped and then consumed? And we'll start with Steve.
I notice a difference. It's all in what you want. When they come right off the pit, they tend to be a little bit more tacky and sweet and gooey, kind of the way that people want ribs. And when you wrap them in film, you're holding it and you're letting that moisture just permeate in the meat, and so you're having a little bit different experience. But I want to kind of back up a little bit, and I agree with Russ. When I'm catering, and I'm catering, like I catered for 150 today, I don't wrap the ribs. They come right off the pit, and we cut them and put them in the pans and put them in the box, and we're ready to go.
Curt?
I notice a little bit of a difference, and it's more, degrees off. It's not a huge difference. I just tend to prefer it a little bit when it's sat a little bit, and just the philosophy of, like I said, resting any meat that comes off a cooker just for a little bit.
All right, so after we have everything now off the grill, ready to go, unwrapped, if you wrapped them or not, ready to go to the table. Question is, are you, and keeping this specifically just to the backyard, just for your house, do you guys cut single ribs to serve? Do you leave whole racks out and let people whack at them and take what they want? Do you cut them in half? What's the prep and serve plate deal for you guys? And we'll start with Russ.
Yeah, I usually cut them in either single or double bones. Just keep it simple. Single or double bones, that's it.
Curt?
For me, I think it's a good practice to do it, and I always cut them into single bones. That way you can pick up what you want and go.
Steve?
Yeah, I cut them into single bones. Pretty much what I do at home when I'm cooking. I try and do it the same way that I would if I were catering or if I were competing, and that way I just kind of get into that habit. I don't really want to try and change the way that I do things.
All right, so the final question here in post-cooking, this will kind of sum up everything as far as the rib cook goes. So everything's done. You have that nice bone in your hands, and you're going to take your first bite. So you take your first bite. What do you consider to be a good rib as you're chewing and kind of evaluating how you've done for the day? What do you consider to be a good rib? And we'll start with Curt.
For me, it's if it bites off the bone, where it only comes off where I bit, but it comes off clean. The bone can be a little bit dry where I left it, but if the whole slab of meat comes off, they're overcooked and usually taste it.
Russ?
Pretty much same thing as Curt said. They come off the bone clean, but where you bite only, and they're left with a dry bone, and you don't want that whole bone of meat coming off and hitting you in the chin. Usually they're mushy at that point and not very good.
Steve?
Well, I guess I'm the trifecta because I'm the same way. It's you want that bite to really be the only lasting bite there. Comes off the bone, the bone's clean, and it's not good for you at all. Period. If the whole entire piece of meat comes off the bone, then it clearly is overcooked. So yeah, I agree with the other two panelists.
All right, well, let's take a quick email question from John Wade. He is a Barbecue Brethren reader or forum member, and he said he's been looking for years for a rub or a paste or a marinade or something really exotic and off the beaten path to put on his ribs. Any suggestions? Steve, let's start with you.
I don't know. I make my own rub. And that's what I've been doing for years. But I did recently get a sample sent to me, actually a couple of samples sent to me. And I played around a little bit with the Plowboys bovine, and that's a pretty nice rub.
Curt?
I think stuff like pepper jelly is always fun to kind of play with. Like I said, I do apple butter every once in a while. It depends on what kind of flavors you're looking for, but I think with ribs you can overdo it too, where they don't taste like ribs, they taste like rub. So you want to be a little bit careful when you do it.
Russ?
That's a loaded question. Of course, I'm going to have a biased answer. I use my rub. I use Smoking Coals rub. It's a sweet, salty, spicy rub, and I think I developed it especially for ribs, and that's what I use. I've had a lot of South Carolina teams have picked it up and began using it on the competition trail around here.
One other question here from an emailer whose name I can't make out, unfortunately, but wondering if anybody's done jerk ribs. Curt, jerk ribs?
I've done jerk chicken, not jerk ribs, but it actually would be something pretty good to try. I may have to do that for my blog.
Russ, jerk ribs?
Nope, never did jerk ribs.
Steve, jerk ribs?
No, I haven't either.
You averse to trying it?
I would love to try it. I think it's a great idea. I love the flavor profile of jerk. I've like Curt, I enjoy good jerk chicken. I like the flavors and the spiciness of it. I think it'd be something different. I'm in for trying it.
All right, so there you go. Jerk ribs, definitely a trial. Maybe I'll try that too. I got some great jerk rub here just earlier in the week. So let's move to the parting shots segment. This is where panel members get to promote shamelessly any websites or Twitter accounts or Facebook accounts or whatever they would like to promote here on the Barbecue Central Show. This is the Ribs Roundtable edition, and we'll start with Curt.
Well, of course, you already said my Twitter account, which is C. McAdams, and I'm on there quite a bit, unfortunately. But my blog is called Livefire. It used to be called Bucky's Barbecue and Bread, but I switched to Livefire this summer, and the website is livefireonline.com. Livefire Online is all one word. And I try to do a variety of things, not just barbecue on there. A lot of outdoor cooking, and it's a lot of fun to do.
Curt, I'm sorry, Russ.
I'll go.
Hey, Greg, I have a website. Of course, we market in our barbecue sauce, Smoking Coals, and dry rub at smokingcoals.com. You can also join our Facebook group, Smoking Coals Barbecue Sauces and Rubs, on Facebook. But you can log on to the website and pick up a bottle of sauce or dry rub.
And we'll end with Steve.
You'd already mentioned Twitter, which is bbqlikeapro.com. I mean, not .com, but bbqlikeapro. Our blog site is bbqlikeapro.com. And we cover various different equipment. We try and teach the beginner and the novice and run them kind of through how a professional thinks and how they get there. Talk about different kinds of equipment and we review different equipment. So that's fun. And then, of course, we're on Facebook, and that's Facebook.com/barbecue like a pro.
All right. Way to go, guys. Curt McAdams is in Waynesville, Ohio. Steve Johnson is in Greenville, North Carolina. Russ Cornett from Summerville, South Carolina. Guys, certainly appreciate you taking part in the Ribs Roundtable Backyard Edition as far as the Barbecue Roundtable is concerned. A great success, and we will have this up in podcast form early in the morning tomorrow, so go ahead and pass it around to all your friends and neighbors. Tell a friend, as we always say here on the show. Thanks for taking the time out to do it, lending all the secrets and techniques, and continued success to each and every one of you.
Greg, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
All right, guys, take care. Another Barbecue Roundtable is in the books. Success. I know we had some stream problems there, probably for the first half of the show. I apologize. It's tough for me to hear what is happening, especially when I can't hear it on my end. So I stopped the stream at some point and kind of reset everything, and I heard from LA that kind of resolved the issue. So thanks again to Curt McAdams, Russ Cornett, and Steve Johnson. Once again, their promotional info: Steve Johnson is bbqlikeapro.com, Russ Cornett, smokeandcoals.com, and Curt McAdams is livefireonline.com. There you go. Want a 2-pack of Smokin' Coals barbecue sauce, I bet. I bet you do. Well, I can hook you up with that. All you have to do is email me the answer to this. There was a specific term used in the preparation portion of the Barbecue Ribs Roundtable, something that all of them were looking for specifically when they were scouting out the ribs, what they were trying to avoid at all costs. If you can tell me what that is correctly, first one in to do that wins a 2-pack of Smokin' Coals barbecue sauce, graciously donated by Russ Cornett. SmokeandCoals.com is the place to go for that. Now, last week I had made mention of a barbecue brush from Bar Brothers. That's at Bar Brothers, BARR Brothers.com. This was the Polyhandle Grill Wizard brush. And you can find that, again, by going to barbrothers.com. That's BARR. And then the product ID is Grill Wiz, W-I-Z. It's almost $12 retail. You can pick up a pack of 3.5-inch replacement scrubbies, a 2-pack for $3.50. So it's a great brush, as I was saying at the end of the show last week. Check that out, barbrothers.com. And that's going to do it. Thanks again to my guests for a successful Barbecue Roundtable. Coming up after me at 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, it's the ladies, the broad topics. It's Laura, Joan, Kelly, and Jillian. What's that you ask? What are they having on this show tonight? Oh, I'll tell you. They're having on Miss Fix-It. They're having a Miss Fix-It show. And Carmen De La Paz from HGTV's Hammerheads is going to tell everybody what basic tools every gal should have. Uh-oh. What does that mean? Tools? Every tool a gal should... Oh, the jokes that go on with that. Anyway, stay tuned for that. Broad Topics, 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Also, special plug to Knox Spice Company. KnoxSpice.com. Check them out. They have a great ambrosia pepper sauce that'll knock your socks off. Their jerk chicken is their jerk rub is very good as well. Still waiting to review the cracked pepper and their other chipotle rub as well. I will do that sooner than later because that stuff is great. Quick reminder about Yoder's Smoky Mountain Barbecue, the on-lighting retailer of Meadow Creek barbecue equipment. Check them out. They have all of the Amish country of Lancaster, Pennsylvania Meadow Creek barbecue equipment that you want. Profitable barbecues for years to come. Check them out. SeriousBBQs.com. That's SeriousBBQs.com. Coming up next week, the return of Ray Lampe and the return of the barbecue addicts, Todd and Jason. So stay tuned for that. Till next Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, this is your program host, Greg Rempe, and proud U.S. American, by the way. Thanks for listening to Barbecue Roundtable Ribs Edition for the Backyard Barbecuer. We'll see you next time. I am out of here.
Future of barbecue is already here at thebarbecueguru.com. From the amazing guru that monitors and controls the temperatures of any charcoal, wood, or electric pit to the Caldera Tallboy knockdown smoker, Yes, it breaks down and stores flat, yet it's still a robust, sturdy, portable cooker and smokehouse. It also serves as an efficient temperature-controlled convection oven using wood or charcoal. The Tall Boy is designed to fit all catering pans and can be used as a warming oven. You can cook in any style you choose. Make ribs, chicken, jerky, vegetables, smoked cheese, whatever you want. Take it to KCBS competitions and unload it from the trunk of your car. TheBarbecueGuru.com is where you'll find the Caldera 3-Bay Caterer. It's stainless steel and uses charcoal or sterno for chafing purposes. And it doubles as a 3-bay sink or wash station with hot water and knocks down in seconds with no tools required for transportation and storage. The future of barbecue is here at TheBarbecueGuru.com. That's www.thebbqguru.com or call 1-800-288-GURU.
Forget going from site to site to get all your barbecue and grilling supplies and make your first and final stop at fredsmusicandbarbecue.com. In the market for a new barbecue pit, we have all the big name brands like Big Green Egg and more. As a matter of fact, Fred's is staffed by eggheads and carries all the parts and accessories for the Big Green Egg. More of a pellet head, you say? Fred's is the pellet grill superstore with grills in stock from Traeger, Green Mountain, and Country Smokers from Louisiana Grills. Fred also carries smokers from Cook Shack, Bradley, and Weber as well as a full lineup of charcoal grills. And once you're outfitted with your new smoker or grill, you'll find absolutely everything you need to make your barbecue or grilling experience a success. Fred is also the creator and distributor of Tasty Licks barbecue products, including their great line of rubs, spices, and sauces. You gotta try them. You can also get your hands on a full lineup of marinades, accessories, lump charcoal, wood chips, pellets, chunks, and even the great grilling tools from Stephen Reichland of Barbecue U fame. Check Fred out on the web at fredsmusicandbbq.com or check out their fully stocked showroom in beautiful Shillington, PA.